Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're embarking on a bit of a cinematic journey through the human mind. And I mean a journey that is going to take our deeply ingrained, preconceived notions about how we learn, how we study, and how we retain information, and just flip them completely upside down. Because let's be honest, for decades, the absolute gold standard for learning has been to sit completely still in a quiet room, stare intensely at a static textbook, and forcefully push any distractions out of your mind. It's exhausting, right? And quite frankly, it usually feels like a chore. But there's this massive wave of fascinating research pointing us toward a radically different, highly dynamic approach to cognitive development.
Seriously, what if playing games was actually the ultimate study hack? For generations, we've lived with this totally outdated stereotype of games as mere distractions. We've been told over and over that they're just time wasters, pulling us away from real, productive work. It's that classic, put the controller down and go do your homework struggle. But what if that interactive screen time, when designed correctly, is actually the key to unlocking higher-order thinking? What if the intense, engaging mechanics of play are the exact mechanics our brains need to learn efficiently? Well, let's rethink this stigma, throw out the old playbook, and dive right into the actual data.
Section 1. The Power of Play. Redefining how we learn.
For the longest time, education relied heavily on rote memorization. You know the drill, just reading text over and over, hoping the information magically sticks to your brain. That's passive learning, and it really fails to keep the brain fully engaged in a world where we are literally biologically wired for interactive stimulus. Now contrast that with active gamification. Gamification forces your brain into a dynamic, highly active environment. It introduces rapid multitasking, split-second decision-making, and immediate feedback loops. When you're engaged in a game, you aren't just this passive receptacle for information. You're actively applying it, manipulating variables, and reacting to consequences in real time. If you make a mistake, the game tells you immediately, triggering dopamine responses that actually solidify that learning. Your brain has to work significantly harder, sure, but because it's wrapped up in the framework of a game, it doesn't feel like work at all. It just feels like play.
Section 2. Boosting Memory and Recall. The Science of Staying Alert.
So we all know that incredibly frustrating feeling of our eyes glazing over after reading the exact same paragraph 3 times, only to realize we haven't absorbed a single word. How do games prevent that specific kind of mental fatigue? Well, a 2023 study by Richard found something absolutely fascinating. Playing online games essentially instructs the brain to stay alert. That stronger concentration and sustained focus are directly linked to improved memory recall. Think about it. Video games inherently demand your undivided attention. You simply cannot just zone out while playing. If you let your focus drift even for a split second, you lose. This constant, high-stakes requirement to stay alert acts as a literal workout routine for your brain. It actively strengthens your working memory by forcing you to hold multiple pieces of information in your mind simultaneously just to survive or progress in the game.
And the results of this cognitive mental workout are staggering. 92%. That is the knowledge retention rate achieved in a brilliant study by Ludfi and colleagues when they used educational game-based elements to teach chemistry. Just let that number sink in for a second. Instead of just memorizing the periodic table from a chalkboard, these students were interacting with the material. Imagine a scenario where you have to combine molecules like puzzle pieces before a timer runs out, or physically drag and drop chemical bonds to trigger virtual reactions just to unlock the next level. Because the complex chemical concepts were intricately tied to active game mechanics, the students in the experimental group were able to retain an incredible 92% of what they learned. Repeated active engagement with gamified content solidifies memory pathways way beyond what traditional passive lectures could ever hope to achieve.
Moving on to Section 3, Mastering Vocabulary Through Games, where simplicity is key.
Because here's the catch. Not all games are created equal when it comes to learning. Researchers Chen and Cao conducted this really eye-opening study on how specific game designs actually affected English vocabulary learning. They compared 2 very different apps. First, they used a digital version of tic-tac-toe, which obviously has incredibly simple, universally understood mechanics. Then they compared it to an app called Star Voc, which had much stronger, way more complex game design factors. We're talking flashy animations, skill trees, intricate point systems, the whole shebang. And the results? Crystal clear. Students who played the simple tic-tac-toe game demonstrated vastly better vocabulary learning and retention. Why? Well, because the students playing the highly complex Star Voc game got completely distracted. They focused all their mental energy on beating the game, unlocking character skins, and figuring out the intricate mechanics, totally forgetting to focus on the actual vocabulary words. They were literally too busy trying not to lose their high score to actually learn the material.
So the crucial takeaway here revolves around a psychological concept called cognitive load. Game elements absolutely must serve the learning goal, not overshadow it. Our working memory has a limited capacity, right? If an educational app is way too flashy or its interface is too complex, your brain's cognitive load shifts entirely away from learning the target material and toward just figuring out how to play the game. For gamification to be an effective study hack, the game itself has to act as a clear, unobstructed vehicle for the information. Simplicity is vital. It allows your brain to dedicate its processing power to the content while still enjoying the dopamine hits and engagement of playing a game.
Section 4. Leveling up logical reasoning, choosing the right genre.
Okay, we've seen the memory benefits and the fundamental rules for app design, but how do different brain training genres actually unlock complex problem solving? Well, just like you choose a specific tool for a specific job, you can actually choose specific game genres to target precise cognitive skills. Take escape room simulations, for instance. Because players have to scour virtual rooms for obscure clues to progress, they're fantastic for forcing intense attention to detail and significantly improving your inductive reasoning. Puzzle games. They've been shown across multiple studies to heavily enhance mathematical and spatial reasoning by requiring players to manipulate geometry and numbers. And then you have the heavy hitters, the MOBA games, or multiplayer online battle arenas like No.2. Due to the sheer chaos and macro strategy involved, MOBA players are constantly tracking minimap movements, player cooldowns, and team positioning all at once. Because of this, players develop profound, highly transferable skills in complex scenario assessment, adapting techniques on the fly, and rapid pattern recognition. You are quite literally rewiring your brain to think more logically and strategically based entirely on the genre you choose to play.
Section 5. Winning the learning game. Unlocking your brain's potential.
Let's pull this all together. We are rapidly moving past the era where studying has to feel like some kind of punishment. Think of the empirical data we've covered today as actual player stats that you can level up in your real life. By integrating the right gamified elements into your daily study routines, your real-world unlockables include an enhanced working memory, driven by the sustained focus required to play, knowledge retention rates that can reach an incredible 92%, sharper logical, strategic, and spatial reasoning developed through specific, targeted gameplay genres, and accelerated vocabulary acquisition by utilizing simple, frictionless game mechanics. These aren't just vague theories, folks. This is measurable, scientifically backed cognitive development.
Which brings us to our final, overarching question for today. Are you ready to gamify your own learning routine? The science overwhelmingly shows us that when we make learning active, engaging, and purposeful, we don't just temporarily memorize facts for test, we actually master the subject. So, the next time you need to tackle a dense, complex topic, maybe don't just reach for the highlighter and a pot of coffee. Look for the game. Play to learn and play to win. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time as we continue to decode the fascinating world around us.